Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. On the podcast with us today is Shane Connor. He's the leading producer of staffing and recruiting sales who pours his profits into passive commercial real estate investments and has been doing this since age 27. Welcome to the podcast, Shane.
Dan, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Shane. We are looking forward to talking with you today, and we'd like for you to get us started by just telling us a little bit more about where your focus is right now and maybe a little bit about your journey to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for the intro. As mentioned, I do lead a full-time career in the healthcare staffing and recruiting business, and that is a largely commission-based role, which allows me to kind of have no cap on my income and allows me to, pour some of that discretionary income into real estate investing. And I moved from Philadelphia to Georgia in 2012 to open up an office for that company. And through the years, I was doing pretty well, and that landed me the opportunity to start investing in commercial real estate syndications as a limited partner. And I had been doing that for a few years, continuing to drive partnerships, relationships, which blossomed into partnerships. And this last year, around January, I had the opportunity to launch my own business in still investing, but also assisting in capital raising efforts and investor liaison efforts to bring other passive investors into the LP side of large commercial real estate syndications.
Well, I want you to talk to us about a tough decision first that had a not so good outcome. So I like to call it our sore thumb tough decision. So can you share with the listeners about that tough decision that you had that did not have a very good outcome and some of the lessons you learned through it?
Yep, absolutely. So I'd say probably when I first got started on the more of the raising side, I'd say I underestimated my network size and willingness to invest in these types of opportunities. So kind of a decision to overpromise. I bit off a little more than I could chew when I first got onto the GP side of the deals, and I kind of was naive on how hard it was going to be, to get accredited investors and kind of get them through the process and have folks willing to take that journey. So I think, the lesson would be in anything that you're doing, any new venture, start small, grow a little bit at a time, get bigger, in short chunks, and make sure that you're learning the ropes and you're confident in taking off projects, whether it be new customers, new clients, that you can handle that size and scope without kind of going over your bridges, so to speak.
I have lots of conversations. As most of our listeners know, I'm in the real estate side of things as well. And I know Shane and I have actually been on the GP side on the same deals before. And so it's been nice to be able to work with you, Shane, and that kind of stuff. But I would say that a lot of people that I talk to in the real estate syndication space, they call me up and they'll say, how do I really jump in? What's the best way? And one of the things I suggest is doing capital raising, because a lot of times when you go out there and you try to find some of your own, properties and deals to be able to undertake, you do get to that point of underestimating, what your network is willing to be able to bring to the table when it comes to actually asking for them to put up money. And so you talk to people before you have a deal and they say, yes, let's invest. Here's how much I have. And then when it comes to pony up, if you will, some people back out. And it's a real test of, before you get a deal that you need to raise money for, jump on the GP side and go capital raise for somebody else, because then you can really know and determine how much you can obtain from your network and who trusts you and who is willing to invest alongside you.
Yeah, and not everybody has the same risk profile. I mean, they might say that sounds good, but for me, it was a pretty quick decision when I invested in my first syndication. But other folks, it may take them a year before they finally come around and are willing to put over that capital.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things where you want to give up on those people. It's just I'll keep you on the investor list, and as deals come through and you're looking at them, if you have questions, and then let us know. And I know that there are certain things that happen where, unexpected bills, whether it be taxes or school tuition or whatever excuse an investor gives us. It's not a bad thing. It's just, hey, it's not the right time, but keep me on the list and I'll continue to be a part of it. But it definitely gives you a pulse on what your investor base can provide when you actually start to take down your own deals.
And I'm sure you'd agree, Dan, that, timing and fit are a must. It has to be the right time and it has to be the right fit. We're not trying to put anybody down a hole that they shouldn't be in.
And another thing I would say too is I never want somebody's last $50,000. I was at a seminar recently and they said, you never know when you're going to have the person's last $50,000. And I'm like, yes, I will, because I do not want somebody's last $50,000.
Don't ever want to go down there. Yes, totally agree.
I want to use people's money that it's more of an excess for them, and they're using this to kind of put it away, get the tax advantages and tax benefits, and the income off of it is a nice benefit. But it's not going to be the end of the world if they, don't get the full amount back or the full return back or whatever the case may be. Not that
that's where the accredited,
but that's what happens.
And that's where the accredited threshold, comes in nicely. But for me, going back to my challenge, I'm 31 years old. Not a lot of people in my close circles are at an accredited threshold. So, they will be in due time. But for some of the folks that I partner with that are just later in stages of life and have had longer careers, they've accumulated a lot more wealth and capital to be disposable.
Correct. So let's shift a little bit here, Shane, and talk about a tough decision that you've had to make that had a really good and positive outcome and some of the lessons you learned through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this one, I'm kind of going to backtrack a little bit to a decision that ultimately led me to becoming more of an entrepreneur or a side business entrepreneur, if you will. When I had that opportunity back in late 2011, 2012, to move from Philadelphia to Atlanta, to a city I'd never been, to start up a business operation and didn't really know what I was getting into. And I kind of sat my dad down for a beer and we decided, what's the worst that can happen? And I packed the U-Haul truck up and drove down, and that basically allowed me to rapidly grow in my career, which allowed me to quickly climb an income threshold to meet that accredited status, which allowed me entry into the real estate syndication space, which allowed me to form those partnerships that drive my current business today. So, had I never taken that leap or said, I don't know about Atlanta, or I don't really want to leave my bubble here in Philadelphia, who knows what would have happened, but I would have never had all the things that I have today. I ended up meeting my wife here, starting my family. So there's just always looking to push yourself, take that leap of faith, take that risk, because you can always go backwards, right? You can always go back to where you were or what you were doing, or if you're tenacious enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. So pushing yourself outside that comfort zone, I think all entrepreneurs could kind of agree with that statement.
Yes. And I think, a lot of times we get stuck in the action of inaction, which is the worst action to be stuck in because of our headspace. And when we can really clear our headspace and clear those mental blocks, it can allow us to really push through, like you said, and really take that next step of being uncomfortable, because it's very hard to progress and to grow and to succeed being comfortable. That's when stagnation occurs, and we need to be able to constantly be in that state of growth and in that state of being uncomfortable.
I don't even know if I told Dan this, but I think recently, like this weekend, I saw a sign that said, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's really where you have to get to in order to experience, the constant and steady progress and growth that we want.
I mean, I was scared to death coming down here, but I knew that it was the only way to really rapidly grow outside of what I had already accomplished in that area.
Shane, talk a little bit about the strategies that you use when you are facing a decision. How do you get to the point where you are ready to move forward in a specific direction when you're facing a tough decision?
Yep. Well, I'm a pretty kind of spontaneous person, but when it comes to big decisions, I do think rationally and I do list out the pros and cons. I'm very big on the pros and cons list. But I really do listen to my gut a lot, and I usually end up making the decision that was my gut feeling from the very early on stages of that decision making. And I look at regret a lot. I kind of look at, will I regret this? If it's a decision I'm maybe not going to make or leaning one way because I'm scared, I kind of look at the regret and think 10, 15 years down the line, will I regret not making this? And Dan and I had talked a little bit, pre-call that I lost my father a couple months ago in June at the age of 62. And that further drives that point for me now, because this life is so short and it is so fragile and you just never know. And so I want to make sure that I'm taking advantage of every opportunity and pushing myself as much as I can. And if I hopefully make 62, 65 or 70, 80, I want to look back and not have any regrets on the path that I took.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we'll talk to Shane about some of his favorites as it relates to his life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. And we are back with Shane Connor. And I want you, Shane, to start off this part of the podcast by talking to us about your most favorite technology that you use in business that helps make your life easier as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say LinkedIn is just a really great platform that I like to utilize. Dan, I know you guys are active on there. You know, whether it's kind of posting a closed deal or just kind of talking about what you're doing, you know, the reach between the first, second, and third degree connections is potentially tens of thousands of people that can kind of quickly, people can get eyes on what you're doing, who you are, and what you're about. It allows you to really scale your kind of marketing efforts for really a free investment just of your time. I've been active on the platform for a long time, but I'm getting deeper and deeper into that side of it. And then really just everyone has it, but the smartphones, right? I mean, for somebody like myself that travels nationally for business and is running around like a crazy person sometimes, I'm able to get a lot of things I need done just simply on the iPhone, whether it's talking to investors or following up on deals. You know, you can do that in an Uber or an airplane, gate. And I know that's kind of something that we kind of take for granted. It's only really been around for 10 plus years, but it truly does maximize someone's time who's really, really busy.
And what is a favorite quote that you have read or heard that has helped you as an entrepreneur?
I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. It may not be a direct quote, but it was something that Jeff Bezos said when he was faced with the decision of leaving Wall Street to start what was Amazon back in the day, just a book selling platform and service up there in Seattle. And it was something to that effect of he tried to fast forward himself to the 80-year-old version of Jeff Bezos. And looking back, would he regret staying on Wall Street? And I try to use that test in a lot of decisions and things that I do in life.
And what's a book that you have read and would recommend to our listeners?
Really good book by Laura Vanderkam called 168 Hours. And basically it breaks down that we all have 168 hours in 1 week. And by looking at it in hours and actually scheduling your time down, you'll find that even if you slept 8 hours a night, spent 2 to 3 hours of quality time with family, worked out 3 to 4 times a week, you still have over 30 plus hours of free time in a week to go do whatever that you want to do. So people think all the time that they're too busy to start a side business or they're too busy to go after that hobby. Unless you really look at your time, you'll find that you're wasting most of it. So if you don't plan it, you're going to waste it. And it's a really, really well done book.
What's the next thing for you right now on your vision or dream board?
So I want to continue. My wife and I love to travel. We did Croatia for a honeymoon, which I highly recommend visiting if any of your listeners have not been there. So I want to continue to knock off new countries from our wish list board. And I'd like to help 50 passive investors access commercial multifamily syndications. You know, it's a big, aggressive number from what I've currently been doing, but I really am passionate about opening people up to the opportunities in these private markets. Dan, you know the types of returns that are available.
Absolutely.
And it's really just something that most people don't know. And as you know the regulations, you're not going to see these deals advertised. So I've got an aggressive goal over the next year and a half to get a minimum of 50 new investors opened up to this market.
That's exciting. Well, how can the listeners reach out to you if they've listened to the podcast, they want to follow you more, or they want to get some more information about your real estate syndication and various things like that?
Absolutely. So they can hop on my website. It's redrockcapitalgroup.com, all one word. They can email me directly. That's Shane at redrockcapitalgroup.com. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm active on Facebook. Send me a message. Subscribe to our newsletter. be happy just to hop on the phone with anybody and talk to them about, the space, life, business in general.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to be with us today on the podcast. Look forward to having you on a future episode as you continue to grow.
Dan and Danae, this has absolutely been my pleasure, and thank you guys for what you're doing. It's a really great show, and you guys are really pumping some great content out there.
Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.